Okay, so now we're going on to how we can maybe simplify what we've just done, this adding of the extra table in order that we create a relational database. To a certain extent, it's added an extra degree of complexity to what we've done. We've got a much more complicated query that we have to use when we are showing the records from the table. Oh, by the way, I'm actually using my work machine now rather than my home machine. That might explain why it looks a little bit different, because I'm using Windows Vista at work rather than Windows XP. Anyway, that being said, how could this? So we've added an extra degree of complexity such that our query is actually much more complicated. We're having to put in a join inside our query. However, Access does allow us the ability to actually create, if you like, built-in queries into the database, which can sort of somehow kind of make a lot of this a lot easier. So instead of us in our SQL manually creating the query by using the syntax from papers weeks, where weeks ID equals people's papers.week foreign key ID, what we can do is somehow build that logic into our database itself, and I'll show you how you do that. What you can do, so at the moment what we've got is our two linked tables. We have a table called papers, which has got a list of papers. We have a table of weeks, which has got a list of weeks. Okay, and we've got a link between the two, which we can see if we go into the database tools relationships pane. We can actually see there we have a link between our week foreign key ID and the ID of the weeks table. Okay, so that's our database. But what we can do now is, what I'm going to do is a very nice little feature of Access, is to add a query, a built-in query, which in itself joins these two tables together, and such that we don't have to do the joining inside our code. Let me explain this. So let me click on Query Wizard. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a query which joins these two tables together, okay, in such a way that we can then address it directly. So if I just choose, all I have to do is choose the fields from the two tables that I want to see appear together. So I click on Author, Title. I don't need to bother about the IDs or the foreign key IDs, because they're the things that the database needs itself. They're not the things that the user needs to see. So I've taken all these fields out of the data of the papers table. Now I go into the weeks table, and I'm just simply going to take the number field out of the weeks table. Okay, so when I do that, I can go on to the next one, detail or summary, just say detail. Okay, and now I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to give it a name, papers and weeks. Okay, and then I'm going to click finish. And what it'll do, it'll create a table very similar to the one we originally had for the weeks table, for the papers table. We have the author, title, the abstract, the intro, the hyperlink, and we have a field called number, which contains the week. But the beautiful thing about that is this is a query, so it's still, now it's a relational database, which is as simple, looks as simple as the flat file database we originally had, but it is nonetheless a relational database now. And this query is something that we can also, just as we kind of call on the weeks and the tables, the weeks and papers table from our own SQL, we can also refer to this query from our own SQL and thus simplify our code. So let me go back into the code here. So this is from our mobile standards.aspx VB page. So what we've currently got is select star from papers weeks, where weeks ID equals papers.week foreign key ID order by. We can actually replace all of that by simply just saying papers and weeks, because effectively that's what we've just created, a query which joins those two tables. So what we're going to say, select star from this query. Okay, select star from this query. Okay, from papers and weeks. Okay, from papers and weeks, order by. Oh damn! In the second one, I've accidentally missed out the order by. So let's just put the order by here. Okay, and finally, the last one doesn't have any order by, so we just simply use papers and weeks to replace the entire query, the entire second half of the query, such that now we've got as we originally had. We've got a very simple SQL statement now, but we've still got a relational database. Okay, so let's see if this nonetheless works. So let's press play. Okay, so hopefully if this does work, what we should see is exactly the same thing, and all those commands for sorting should also still be working. Okay, so we're just querying it. My machine is a little bit slower than at home, so there it is. It does actually work. We still see everything. Do the sorting options still work? I click on author, yes it does. I click on title, okay, and that should kind of like sort everything by title. And if I click on week, that should sort everything by week, and it all does. It all works. So what you've seen there is we've now got back to the original simplicity of our flat file database while still having a relational structure, which makes it much more robust. Okay. Anyway, so that's, if you like, that's concluded the part where we've done our very simple first real normalization of the database. Now we're going to get on to the much more complex process of adding tagging into our system, and this involves something much harder, because at the moment all we've done is linked two tables, and whenever we've done that link, we've there is a fixed set of possible week numbers. There is 3 to 10. There is nothing else, and we know that there will never be anything else, so we don't have to worry about the user typing in a week 11, so we don't have to give the user that facility to do that. However, in something like tagging, we both need the user to be able to choose from tags previously entered in the system, as well as create new tags. But if those tags are in a separate table from that of the papers, then we've got to somehow link from, say, for example, we're allowing the user to put in a new paper, then the user must be, and with a new tag in it, then the user somehow must be entering something into the database of the paper, then entering the tag into the database, and then saying that last record we entered into the database of the paper relates to the tag we last entered. So as you see, this is much more complex. We're going to need to think about it much more, and it's going to require much more effort. But anyway, we've done the first part of the simple relational database work. Now we're going to get on to the hard stuff.